Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast. Today, I am so excited for because I have a guy on who I have followed for many years and who is a mentor from afar to me. I've read a lot of your articles. I've taken the feed to Cats program, still working through it as well. But Coach Tony Holler is a speed legend. He has 41 years of coaching experience, and I'm so excited for him to share his wisdom today. So, Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's like we've known each other for a long time, but we've never met in person. And everybody, it acts like social media is so awful and stuff, but it's been really good for my professional development, and I'm sure it has been for yours as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And when you first had reached out to me about doing a collaboration, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like I think that's such a great idea. And I love merging the track world with the soccer world because the soccer folks get speed wrong. Coaches, even soccer performance coaches at the highest level, get it wrong. Parents definitely get it wrong, but I think they're just given a lot of misinformation surrounding speed. So let's just start with your background, and then we'll get into this. So, who have you worked with, and what are you up to today?
I always start by saying I'm for 63 years I've been a coach's kid because my dad coached basketball for 47 years at high levels, high school and college, and I have four kids, and two of them are coaches. So it's kind of like those firefighter families that everybody's a firefighter, family of cops and things like that. Well, I'm kind of a family of coaches, so I've lived it. And being my dad's oldest son, I was always his wingman. So at a very young age, I was kind of had a coach's mind, and I've coached a lot of basketball, a lot of football, but track for 41 years. That's been the common thread. And I didn't always like track. I didn't like track when I ran it in middle school, high school, and college. I don't understand why I did all that track and field if I didn't like it. And then I coached the same way I was coached until 1999, when I decided to throw it all out and just pursue speed alone. And of course, the other side of the coin is jumping. So I told my kids we weren't going to run anymore. We're going to sprint and jump. And it made track very popular. And that was the reason I did it. But what I found out was my kids got really fast. And so here I thought I was under training kids just to get them to like my sport. And what I found was that I was not under training. I was properly training sprinters. So in 1999, an idea where I called sprinters cats. They're twitchy athletes. And so I started saying I was feeding the cats. And somehow people asked me, how did you come up with this brilliant branding thing? And I tell them that it was never really a thought. I never intended to brand it at all. And now when you say feed the cats, there's people in Europe that say, yeah, I know what that is. So it's been crazy. Of course, I've coached, tons of great kids. And a few years ago, I coached one of the fastest guys in the world. Matter of fact, at the age of 14 as a freshman, he ran the fastest 100-meter time ever recorded in the history of the world. So that guy, Marcellus Moore, is now running at the University of Texas, and he was in the Olympic trials last year at the age of 18. So I mention him because he's probably my most famous guy. But I've had hundreds of really good kids that ran fast for me.
You guys, please take out your notebooks because the wealth of experience here is absolutely incredible. So, before we hit record, we were talking about simple and why a lot of trainers in our industry and coaches they're going more towards complex when the answer lies in simple, especially if we're trying to coach younger athletes and also talk to parents as well. So let's start simple. What what is speed? Because a lot of people get it wrong. And in the soccer world, I'll say this, I have seen so many things labeled as speed training when it is the furthest thing away from speed training. So how do you define it?
I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. That's really an interesting question. Define speed. Um, so I love this. First of all, I think I've already kind of said it. Speed is not running. Running and sprinting are two different things, two very different things. Another big misconception is that speed is muscular. For sure, all movement is muscular. Yes, that's okay. We can say movement is muscular, but speed is much more electrical. It is a property of the central nervous system. And I think speed is also more elastic than it is strength. By elastic, we're talking about your tendons, your things that can stretch and spring back. And if you've ever watched a great sprinter, it's almost effortless. It seems like the guy who wins the race is still bouncy after the race, whereas the person who lost the race tried really, really hard. It seemed like he tried harder and lost than the winner tried and won. And a lot of times, slower people are much more muscular when they run. So I think that really guides our training. If it's electrical and elastic, um, the weight room has its place, but it's probably number 3 on the list. And to train the nervous system and elasticity, we must train when you're fresh. And I think you and I have both seen just terrible situations of people that they run a lot, and and of course we worship hard work and high effort. If a matter of fact, at a clinic I'm speaking at in 2 weeks, I'm gonna ask how many of you are big fans of hard work and high effort, and everybody will raise their hand because that's the way we were brought up. It's like, you know, are you a good person? Yes, yes, I am. And but those are not key things in sprinting. We have to perform when we sprint. Sprinting is the most extreme thing the human body can do physically. There's nothing like running at top speed. Like for my track kids, there's nothing like running 23 miles an hour. There's nothing in their life that comes close. And so we have to train that when they're fresh, and then we must have huge amounts of recovery, and we can't sprint every day. We, uh, but as you said in your article that I just read this morning, sprinting once a week isn't enough either. So I believe the sweet spot is about 3 times a week.
And would you say that for soccer players who are in the year-round grind, because that's the battle we're all fighting right now, and I would love to sprint 3 times a week with them, but it's just like they're playing 2 games on the weekend, sometimes 3 games on the weekend, and then you got like 3 to 4 practices a week where they're probably clocking like 10 miles of running.
Yes. Yes.
So I know your thoughts on early specialization. I agree with them, but what do you say about in-season sprinting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if there's a great answer because, uh, first of all, I think we need to address the idea that more isn't always better. And I think as parents, families aren't as big as they used to be. Um, you know, I grew up in a family of 4. I had 4 kids myself, and you can't put as much into 4 kids individually as you can 1 or 2. And so parents put so much into their kids, and they invest in their kids. And so if they can, sign them up for a 12-month, 365-day a year soccer program for 1,000 a month, man, that sounds like a great idea. They're going to win a college scholarship by doing that. And what happens, as you know, they get injured, they get burned out. They don't even like soccer by the time they're 15. I see it all the time. Where I have kids on my track team for like the first time who came from the soccer team. I say, "You like soccer?" He goes, "No, I played it all my life and I hate it now." and we have to be really careful about that. So getting back to your idea, uh, that in-season sprint training. I did develop something, I put it out on YouTube, called the atomic workout, where I tried to say what would be the very minimum that we could do and basically get faster. And so the minimum is basically you do 10 speed drills as well as you can in 10 minutes, which means you're doing something for 5 seconds and resting for 55. So 10 speed drills in 10 minutes, and then you time 2 sprints with free lap. And obviously, when you time a sprint, you are truly sprinting. If you're not timing, you're not truly sprinting. You're just running. So I think that's the minimum. And several soccer teams and lacrosse teams and rugby teams have adopted this 16-minute workout, the atomic workout, as their warm-up before practice. And if you think about that, it really makes sense, because if speed training can only be done when fresh, that's probably the freshest a soccer kid ever is at the very start. And if you watch what soccer kids do for warm-ups, it's basically trash. It's garbage. It's basically just something that kind of runs down their batteries. Whereas the atomic speed workout, I say it charges their batteries, that people after a speed workout should feel alive. And that's because the nervous system should be on fire after a speed workout, because it's 98% rest. It's 90%, cats sleep 20 hours a day, and they're the fastest animals. So it's recovery, it's rest, with brief little 5-second sprint like things, or intense jumping like things. So I think it can be done if the coach buys in, and if the coach removes needless conditioning at the end of practice. I say, let soccer train soccer. And then away from soccer, let's not condition our kids. Let's get them fast and strong. I like to use the word, I actually took this from Mike Whiteman, probably my favorite soccer S&C guy that
He's
spoke at a
great.
track. He's fantastic. And people think it's mine now because I say it all the time. He says, let soccer train soccer, but outside of soccer, let's build apex predators. And they should have everybody leaning in now, like, okay, how you do that? Lift heavy, sprint fast, jump high, jump far. Nowhere in that lift heavy, sprint fast, jump high, jump far do you see anything about preparing for the 9 miles of jogging around on a soccer field. But that's what I mean about let the game train the game. Let's try to schedule our kids less than we are now, so they don't hate it by the time they're teenagers. And then let's train them to be apex predators as athletes.
I love that, and that makes me happy as far as the in-season programming. And I've been having some of my girls use the sprint workout as warm up. It's like, get to your practice 15 minutes early, do your sprints, and boom, you're not going to be fatigued.
No.
It's just there to excite the nervous system. So I'm glad you confirmed that. Now, as far as, let's talk about light to moderate exercise and why soccer players don't need more of that. And I believe you said that if they do more of the explosive and the anaerobic work, that actually will improve their aerobic fitness, which is what every
Yes.
soccer player and coach is chasing, this quote unquote fitness.
Yes. Fitness is one of my least favorite words, along with endurance and in shape, all those things. There is a magic, like my sprinters never do an aerobic focused workout because I think it makes you slow. Now, does that mean my kids are in terrible physical condition? When they take off their shirt, my guys all look like they belong on magazines. They are lean. Their abs are ripped. Sprinting in itself is a wonderful exercise for strength. And even though we do not focus on the aerobic side, I actually had a biochemist, a PhD in biochemistry, reach out to me when he read my stuff. And he says there's studies being done right now that believe that, yes, distance running, endurance work can create more mitochondria in the cells. That's good because that's the aerobic centers. But high intensity quality work may create quality mitochondria, not more of them, but better. I remember in seventh grade, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Well, better powerhouses, because my guys are in much better condition than they probably deserve to be. So there's some magic with that. And you use the word moderate. I go back to Bill Bowerman, the great coach from Oregon, who coached Prefontaine and all those great distance runners. And he believed that moderation did not ever lead to world records. That if you practice the same every day, it's kind of like you're going to practice in third gear every day. So he developed this high-low thing where he wanted extreme training, let's say on a Monday when they're fresh, and then a low day that would prepare for a high day on Wednesday, and a low day on Thursday that would prepare for, let's say, a meet on Friday or Saturday. And that is so important. And then even inside the high days, there is a wave action as well. As you well know, that if you want kids to really sprint fast and do it again, you don't do it 10 seconds later. You have to separate that. Now that goes against everything we've always been taught. As a teacher, I taught chemistry for 38 years. I was taught to keep kids busy. When they walked in, they should have something to do right away. And you don't stop talking until the bell rings, and then maybe talk a little bit after that. And so we wanted to keep kids busy. And then as coaches, we want to keep kids moving, which is the same thing. Well, in the classroom, what that turns into is busy work. In coaching, what that turns into, well, the John Wooden statement is beautiful. Never mistake activity for achievement. So when I watch a soccer practice, I see a shit ton of activity and very little achievement. I see third gear. I don't even call it jogging. It's like slogging around, like they're walking, they're just kind of moving. And yeah, they may run 9 miles in a game, but most of that's just walking and moving, which you don't have to train for. I was on a podcast with 2 soccer guys, S&C guys from UMass, and they asked me, if we should be sprint training instead of conditioning, and I said, of course. And they go, yeah, but soccer is 9 miles of running, and I said, well, explain to me. And I'm not a soccer person. I'm I don't watch soccer. I don't coach soccer. But I said, describe to me your best players. They just kind of looked at each other and said, fast and explosive. I go, there you go. There you go. So why would we train them like a cross country team? Why would we train the speed and explosion out of them when that's the thing that we want to create in them? But as we talked about earlier, you can't do that and play 20 soccer games a week and then do mileage on top of soccer for conditioning. So yeah, it's something that I think in some places it's starting to change, but has a long way to go.
Yeah, it really breaks my heart to still see the extra conditioning at the end of practice. The best soccer coaches I know, they integrate the conditioning within the practice. So it's like you were talking about earlier, like train soccer, let that be separate, and the conditioning should be within the small sided games, the 1v1s, the 2v2s. Always keep the ball in play, minimal rest time, get in that red zone. And it just breaks my heart. It's like, well, if your practice was quality, you don't really need this extra stuff at the end. You're better off saving that time at the beginning for the sprint work. But it's tough to get coaches on board because of that standing around that you mentioned. They're like, wait, and that's the biggest criticism I think of the Feed the Cats is, oh, well, there's too much standing around. So let's talk about rest times between sprints. How long and what should they be doing during the rest time? Just staring at the sunset?
Yes, I think, and this is perfect. You're in Florida, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is perfect for Florida people.
It
Um,
is.
um, you need as much sunshine in your life as a sprinter that you possibly can get, because you get dopamine from sleep and sunshine and vitamin D and success. But that sunshine is just amazing. I think that Um, that all of the world of athletic performance is now starting to see that sleep and sunshine are the two. Matter of fact, I have a T-shirt that I've made with Feed the Cats that has a sun and a moon and the dopamine molecule in between. You know that the sun and the moon, we need to sleep at night and we need sunshine during the day. And of course, we live indoors. I mean, even in Florida, people are staying in the air conditioning way too much. So yes, they need that sunshine, but they also need rest. So when we are speed training, we are not trying to get in shape. We are trying to get fast. We have a very, very clear objective. And so what we'll do is in all of our speed drills, and that's where I coach, and there's also some plyometric stuff in our speed drills. So those things are done. As I said earlier, they take about 5 seconds because as soon as you go over 5 seconds, you're really getting closer and closer to glycolytic work, like lactate producing stuff. And we're not into that at all. So we want to stay anaerobic alactic. So anything, as you said in your article, anything more than 5 or 6 seconds is not sprint. It is not speed training. So it's like 5 seconds on, 55 seconds off. And if you need more, you take more time. And then for the actual sprints, and even if you do like a 10-meter fly, which we do all the time because we love to change that 10-meter fly time into a miles per hour. It's just so powerful for kids to know what mile per hour they are running. And for a 10-meter fly, it's just 22.37 divided by the time that it took you to run between those two cones. And the number one question is always, how much of a run in? You have to have a full run in, or else you're not at max speed. So about 25, 30 meters of run in, you hit that first cone going at top speed, and you maintain top speed for 10 meters. Then you take 22.37 divided by that time, and you get miles per hour. So when we do something like that, may only be 1 second between the two cones, but it's about 3 seconds getting into it and about 1 second getting out of it. So it's probably about a 5-second run. And the rule of thumb is for every second of sprinting, you need 1 minute of recovery. So if we run a 40-yard dash, that's about 5 seconds of sprinting. If we do a 10-meter fly, that's about 5 seconds of sprinting. We take 5 minutes in between. Now, it drives people nuts. As you said, like I love it when visitors come and watch what I do because they see it very like, this all you do? I go, yeah. And they go like, I could do this. I'm like, no shit. Yeah, it's not that hard. It's you just have to make sure you don't do all the dumb stuff. So I had one guy say one time, now in between those 40s that you're timing or those 10s or whatever, have you ever thought about having like stations where you're having kids like doing push-ups, planks, maybe, like jog in place? And I'm like, no, but that is the mentality, as of teachers and coaches, is that if idle hands is the devil, or whatever the saying is. That if kids are not kept busy, they're problems. And so if you're going to have good classroom management, keep them busy. If you're going to have a good practice, keep them moving, keep them busy. Activity, activity, activity. No achievement, but yeah, that's not right. We want achievement. So wait, so anyway, I said, no, we are not going to keep them busy in between. So yeah, they're acting like cats. They're just kind of laying around. And to me, it doesn't drive me nuts because I've watched it for 22 years. But for an old school coach, it drives them crazy. It's like, these kids need to be doing, no, they're resting. So yeah, if you could look up into the sunset and be doing the right thing.
I'm so glad we touched on this because I think also coaches, they just like feel awkward when everyone's standing there. And it's like, you need to push past that. Like, understand, why do you feel awkward? Like, you
Yeah.
guys just tell jokes, tell stories. I mean, for all I care, like, just go for a walk or something. I don't know. Like it
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't really matter, but get that rest. So yeah, that was really great. What about so I call these more of like the lower cost movements. I do a lot of this in season almost every single day. So like you're skipping, marching, high knee variations. So how important are these? I see people butchering these all the time, just kind of going through the motions, half in. So, do you recommend soccer players do these year round as well? And how many times a week should they really be working on the mechanics?
We do them every day. Now, once again, I had a visitor one time that watched me do stuff, and he goes, "Everybody does this." I'm like, "Well, why are you even here then?" I mean, I almost popped off to him, and he goes, "But your guys do them so much better." I go, "There you go, there you go." But my guys do them so much better. And I don't know about you, but if I see a soccer team doing like what I call sprint drills before a practice or something, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. It is like it's a warm up, but it's not neurological. It's not bouncy. It's not snappy. I love the word snappy. Snappy is like elastic. We want to be snappy in our drills, um, and we don't look like sprinters. Like when you tell a kid to skip, they will skip with their foot under their hips. We want to sprint, getting into a sprint position that I call big in the front. We want to sprint like the high knee shape of Carl Lewis, when he would beautifully sprint, 9, 8 something in the 100 meters. So we want the foot out in front of the body with the knee really high, at least a tabletop femur. So every skip, every high knee, every fast march, all those things we want to be. And that's where I coach. And that's where our kids, people say, "Do you do a warm up before you do speed drills?" I'm like, "No." They go, "Don't you get anybody hurt?" Not in 22 years. Not a single person has ever been hurt skipping, marching, bouncing, hopping, uh, doing straight legged bounds. Not a single injury. It does not happen. You go, "Oh, so that is your warm up." I go, "I just don't like the word warm up because warm up kind of to me is like moderate. It is like it's like unfocused. People are talking. Yeah, maybe the body warms up a little bit, but you accomplish nothing. I want to accomplish something. So we do everything with snappiness, with intensity, and it's still real. You use the word, I think, low cost or low. It's still a low cost activity because at the end of 10 speed drills, my guys feel awake. It's a wake up. It's not really a warm up. It's a wake up, and and I think their batteries are charged by going through it instead of drained, which I think a lot of warm up activities drain batteries. We want to wake people up to make them better at performing. And that's so we do the same thing before we race. We do the speed drills and all that. And there is some talk that speed drills do not really make a difference in sprinters, and I disagree. I think the way we do them, I think it translates because my fastest guys do drills best. So to me, that's like, oh, the fast guys are really good at doing box jumps. Let's all get better at box jumps. So that's in our stuff. Um, so so yeah, I'm a big fan of that, but it has to be done right. And as a coach, you can't be like drinking a cup of coffee, talking to a parent, as you send your kids through the drills. I mean, you have to be caffeinated. I guess coffee does have a place. You have to be caffeinated, and you have to get out there, and you really have to be on your game during that time, or else it's just an activity and it's not an achievement. And we only practice about 45 minutes, so we have to achieve.
So if soccer athletes want to make a drastic transformation in their sprint mechanics, their speed times, how much time
Um,
should they make for training? Because there's a lot of people who want a month of, and the results are there. And there's no real work put in, speed's not given any priority in their schedule. So what's the time frame to actually improve all this stuff?
Boy, that's a lot to unpack. You use the word priority, and I say that I consult with a lot of lacrosse programs now, NCAA lacrosse, and I consult with there's England rugby, their national team I consult with, and what I always say is you got to prioritize sprinting. And they're like, "But coach, you realize that rugby is important too." I go, "Yeah, but you can do rugby when you're tired. You can't sprint when you're tired. But coach, you have to be really strong too. We have to really work in the way." Yes, but you can't sprint after you lift. So the prioritization, I think, does not mean you forget everything else. It's just that you have to really be careful where you place that sprint work. Um, Namely, it has to be when you're fresh. You have to sprint before you lift. You have to sprint before you go through a 2-hour practice. If you are off on Sunday, Monday is a beautiful sprint day because you're fresh. So the prioritize thing is really important. I think you have to do it 3 times a day. No, 3 times a week. I'm sorry, 3 times a week. Um, Now you say my atomic workout is it's like the minimal. Like I've had like you when I remote train a lacrosse kid, they are so busy with school and lacrosse and tournaments that they're never fresh and they just can't get out of the door to speed train. So they never get fast. And so that's why I developed this atomic workout. Could you get outside for 16 minutes, a minimum of twice a week? And twice a week hurts me a little bit, but I think the very minimal, twice a week, 16 minutes, twice, you could gain speed. You could improve if that really becomes your habit. Now, what I hope is that it becomes optimal. It goes from atomic to optimal. And really, optimal is not that hard. It's like 10 speed drills and 3 times sprints with a couple of plyometrics afterwards. It's more like a 40-minute workout instead of a 16-minute workout. And so we would like to get the perfect situation is to have an optimal speed workout 3 times a week. And it'd be about 40 minutes. And you have to prioritize it, make sure you're fresh. And then, as you well know, you have to play the long game. Um, I could take any kid that has not been speed trained and get them over 1 mile an hour faster in 8 weeks. Most people won't even give it 8 weeks though. They can't stay on something for more than 10 days. So yes, you have to think long term. I say that speed grows like a tree. Um,
Actually
and so
quoted that in my female athlete book.
good.
Yeah.
That's speed grows like a tree. It's sometimes I say speed grows slow. Which fast, slow, weird. Opposites there. Speed grows slow, and then I also say my 666 theory is that we are not what we did yesterday. This is right up your alley, being all the things you do. We are not what we did yesterday. We are what we did for the last 6 weeks, the last 6 months, the last 6 years. And so if we are what we did the last 6 weeks, last 6 months, last 6 years, it's going to take some time to really develop sprint habits. And so you have to play the long game. Now that's depressing to some people, like, oh, that's a hell of a commitment. But the commitment in terms of time is not too bad. Like 3 times 16 minutes is not a whole lot, or 3 times 35 minutes is not a whole lot of time. So it's not a huge time. And you feel better afterwards than you did before. So it's not like having to run 10 miles a day. So that's good. And, if you can just stick with it, good things happen.
I think this is great, and this is going to be a lot for my audience to ponder, but it's really needed. Now, I want to wrap this up with an excerpt from an article you wrote for Simply Faster, and I don't know what year you wrote this one. 3 simple ways to transform slow to fast. Do you remember
Yep.
that one? I
Yep.
loved it. That's actually how I found you. I was
Mhm.
like, man, this guy is just brutally honest, and I love it. So I'm going to read just a couple sentences
Okay.
here. I whenever I tell people I'm gonna read their stuff, they're like, "Oh, what did you choose?"
And I will have to say that I get in a lot of trouble because I'm hyperbolic. Like I say that, yeah, I know I go rabbit hunting with a buffalo gun
Mhm.
sometimes, but you don't get noticed with a meek voice. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to like make a bold statement, and of course, people don't understand it's just being hyperbolic. So, with that being said, go ahead and read it.
I mean, you're 100% right. I think, the times in my life when I made the most change was when people called me out, not coddled me. So I like it. I think you do need to deliver a punch. So here it is. It's one of the last paragraphs. Okay, so it says, I rant against coaches who enslave their athletes 12 months per year. I hate off-season traveling teams in AAU. When adults encourage kids to specialize, I want to throw up. Youth sports were never meant to be scholarship factories.
I'll
So
stand by
let's
that.
let's end with this and what you meant by that, what was the inspiration and some things for people to take away from that.
Well, I think a lot of it goes back. I think all of us are products of our time and where we grew up and our parents and our DNA and all those things. So I grew up um, really believing in the education-based sports complex, which is like high school football, which I played, high school basketball, which I played, high school track, which I did. So, so I am a huge believer in in accountable educators running sports programs. What I see is are entrepreneurs. Nothing wrong with an entrepreneur. You and I both are. At least I am now. Who push kids. For example, I had a few years ago. I had a great distance runner that was coming out for the team who informed me 2 days later that his soccer coach would not let him run track. And I said, what's up with? He said, well, we signed a contract, and my contract with him says that he can veto. He basically gets to tell me. I said, you realize slavery was kind of like outlawed like 150 years ago. And he just kind of looked at me like, kid's 15. And he's like signed his life away. Where he is with a traveling soccer team that has obviously promised him the moon. And coaches who are also educators do not promise parents the moon. They do not promise scholarships. Uh, there's only 12 college scholarships for every track program in America, just 12. So nobody gets a full ride. But yet parents think they do because the AAU track coach says, "Yeah, I'll get you a scholarship. I have 38 kids in the last 3 years." I mean, it's just used carsmen, car salesmen, snake oil salesmen, promise the moon, and then they just ram so much volume and so many. Every time you go to a tournament, it's a money making thing. You're getting used. You're letting your kid get used to fund somebody's team, somebody's tournament. Um, anytime I'm in a hotel room, it seems, or in a hotel anywhere in America, it seems like 90% of the people there are traveling sports teams with like 7-year-olds wearing major league uniforms or carrying bags that they are bigger than they are with $500 worth of gear. And it's like, I just don't feel like that's what's best for kids. I believe that not many kids will ever make money off of sports, but it's highly educational. And I think that any former athlete, when you ask them what's the best thing in their life, they act like the memories of playing sports. But those are happy memories. They aren't the memories of some soccer kid that's been burned out for 10 years before they're 13. Um, and so I talk a lot about that. And of course, if kids are so busy, as you well know, they'll never get faster. They'll never get stronger. They're just all they're doing is playing soccer.
I think that's a great message for people to sleep on, maybe journal on and meditate on. This has been super, and I want everyone to follow your work. So, where can people find you, and what programs do you have out now that they can get in on?
Well, thank you. Twitter is, is my daily propaganda machine. So yeah, it's at PN Track. I coach at Plainfield North High School in the Chicago area, so it's at PNTRACK at PN Track, or you can Google my name, Tony Holler, holler like yell, and then I put out content. The people at CoachTube convinced me that my stuff would sell, and I didn't really believe them, and I believe them now. Um, as we were talking before we started recording, there is a real market for people who are not complexifiers, and I have taught and coached for so long teenage kids that it's not what you know, it's what you can communicate and what you can get kids to understand and what you can get kids to do. But there's so many professionals out there that have to complexify things to prove that their status is correct. That prove that they're above people like us. And that's what I love so much about your article. It was so simple and to the point and readable. And so anyway, my CoachTube stuff is sold really well. And anybody that wants to look into that, the one that probably most people, well, definitely the one most people buy is the one that's called the Off-Season Speed Workout. And it was made really to try to show a dad what he could do with his kid out in the street, and so that's probably the best seller. That's 101. So thank you for that, and that's where people can find me.
Awesome. So, guys, be sure to check in the caption below. I have included Tony's links, all of his programs. So, check those out, get in on those, give him a follow. And this has been great, Tony. So, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
I loved it. Thank you, Erica.